for joining us for a new episode of Breakthrough, America's leading podcast for writers. Our host is the award-winning writer, producer, and director, James Polikoff. So let's get to it.
Welcome to another edition of Breakthrough, what we like to call a writer's beacon for success. I'm James Polikoff, and this new episode will be enlightening to those writers interested in self-publishing. Could your book really make it on its own without a publisher? And how does social media play a big role? Our guest for this episode of Breakthrough is a former figure skater, coach, and choreographer, Ashleigh Renard, who is now a self-publishing success. So let's get to my guest, Ashleigh Renard. Welcome to Breakthrough, Ashleigh.
Thanks for having me, James. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good. I understand you were a former figure skater, coach, and choreographer. Then one day you sort of did a let's jump into the literary field. What motivated your move into a new industry?
A let's into the literary field. I love that. Best transition joke I've heard, James. I love that. Okay, so the only thing I ever wanted to be growing up was a writer. And I decided that by the time I was about 9 years old in fourth grade. I was a voracious reader, always reading, 6 or more books at a time. And figure skating has a way of taking over a life, sort of like a forest fire, leaving few resources and little attention for anything else. Interesting
description.
Yeah. So I was on the ice for 6 days a week for 30 years. And in the back of my mind and in my heart, I always still wanted to be a writer, be an author. And it was when I was married for 10 years with 3 kids, really unhappy in my marriage, actually, that I started journaling again. And it was my husband who said to me, well, you told me on our second date that you were a writer and that you were going to publish before you were 30. We met right out of college, James. And then my eyes filled up with tears and I said to him, well, maybe I meant 40. And it was him reminding me of that triggered that memory in myself, that was really my plan. And it's easy to become consumed by other things.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But when your writing career began, you signed, and you were very fortunate, you signed with a literary agent, which is a feat on its own, particularly for aspiring writers. But you apparently this went nowhere. So that's when you turned to self-publishing. What made you think this approach was going to work?
Okay, so I coached synchronized skating, which is the least well-known discipline of figure skating. So for 20 years, I was essentially recruiting for a sport people didn't know existed. And right out of college, when I met my husband, I started Philadelphia's first youth synchronized skating program and grew it to one of the biggest in the world. So when I went from coaching skating to writing, I really felt like a fish out of frozen water. I knew nothing and I had no friends, coming from a field where I was well connected and respected and experienced. So I researched madly, what is the most professional, what is the right way to do this? Because as a figure skater growing up, I had internalized that what you're doing is not really going to be worth that big payoff, that big reward, unless you're attempting the highest level of difficulty. So I wanted to go like the most legitimate way possible to help myself feel like, oh, yes, I can be a writer. I wanted that outside affirmation.
Meaning you needed to find an agent.
I needed to find an agent. I wanted to find a big 5 publisher. I thought, okay, these are the only ways that I will feel like a real writer, like an author. Mm-hmm. So a year after I started writing my manuscript, my memoir, I had 2 offers from literary agents because I worked hard and fast. I was about 6 drafts in at that point. I'd received some great feedback from an agent I really, really respected. She was the first one who had requested the full. And I signed with the one who was the most excited about my book. She actually offered me representation when she was just halfway through. And I thought, okay, this seems a little too good to be true, but this is what I was hoping, that I would step from this one field where I've worked so hard and take those lessons I tell people I used to tell my stories on the ice and now I use my words. So the lessons that I learned about the creative process, about storytelling, about figuring out what the audience and judges want, and be able to step into this new industry and just like sort of have it lay out before me like a yellow brick road. So that's what it seemed like with this agent. But James, I actually found the experience of having my creative work pitched by someone else to be completely underwhelming. Going from knowing the nuts and bolts of everything that was happening and then delegating really strategically to
Did you
have it
feel
sort
she
of,
wasn't really getting out there and working for you?
you know what, I think she was, but she wasn't communicating that back to me. I think what happened was she overpromised, and this was right at the beginning of pandemic. We signed in April 2020.
I see. So COVID was just starting at that point in time.
Yeah, right. We'd been locked down for about 6 weeks by that point. It was right at the end of April. I think because she fell in love with the book so quickly, she thought that editors would too. And I'm not sure if she carefully crafted a pitch. She started submitting the day after we signed.
And this was a memoir, right?
It's a memoir.
Right,
Yep,
correct.
it's a memoir, which
And
is
we're going to talk about that later, but go ahead.
notoriously the hardest to sell, right? Unless you're a celebrity who wants to hear about your life. That's
exactly right. You know, selling a memoir, unless you are someone important or well-known, extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's got to be that captivating story, or you already have to be a captivating story that will bring people in enough to actually make you famous, or you already have to be famous to begin with. That's what they say, right?
Right.
So the communication broke down really quickly. I was only signed with her for 2 weeks, and I thought, whoa, this isn't actually what I expected. But then both my in-laws got COVID and ended up in the hospital, and my father-in-law especially. It was a really, really hard road. After being in the hospital for a month, he was home on oxygen for 7 weeks. So I turned to what my family needed at that time and thought, okay, you know what, somebody's working behind the scenes for me. But then when I checked in after, I realized I can't really figure out what's been done or what feedback we're getting. So when my in-laws healed up that fall, September, so 5 months after I signed, I broke off the contract. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know this doesn't feel right. And I'd had enough partnerships in my previous field with assistant coaches, with people I collaborated with, to trust my gut on, I have this tendency, James, when someone isn't holding up their end of the bargain, that I overcompensate and I do more and more. I raise the bar for myself and I lower it for them. And I've been through this pattern so many times and burnt myself out repeatedly.
And your agent, by the way, didn't tell you she was on the verge of getting a publisher. Nothing was happening, basically.
She got a lot of no responses. When I really pushed for the feedback, I started getting some feedback from editors, and all of it was the same, James. It was, they loved the writing, that it read like a novel, that it was sexy, that it was funny. They loved my voice, but they didn't know where to position it in the market. That is code for, we don't know how the hell to sell this.
That's so common.
So common, and I get it. So I had started helping other writers with social media tips at that point. It was sort of my way of it was absolutely my way of trying to connect with other writers, trying to make friends. And what I realized coming from a different field into publishing, you know, I was almost 40 and I came in, and a lot of the people I met had been in publishing since undergrad or grad school, like for a decade or two by this point. And I noticed the people with the most talent in this field, writers, seem to have the least amount of agency. And that confused me a bit, because so often the people with the most talent, like figure skating, really, really get to like run their career and run what they want to do. So I thought, okay, what if we took some of the skills that bloggers or influencers or even genre fiction writers have with connecting directly with their audience? And what if like literary fiction writers had that? What if literary memoirists had that? What if personal essayists had that? And instead of like just submitting, waiting for a byline, seeing if that literary journal will accept their piece, what if they could expand a little bit and build these bridges directly with their readers?
So this led you to self-publishing.
This led me to coaching other writers. And when I was
Oh, so
You know,
before you published your book, you actually began coaching writers.
I did. I
My
opened
goodness.
up a Facebook group for writers who wanted to build platform and just started offering my tips and tricks. I really did not consider myself to be an expert in any way.
Sounds
I
like
had
you're a motivational person, though. So what you felt with a lot of these writers, one important part of coaching is motivation.
Absolutely. And then it was there, James, that I realized, oh, the superpower that I've honed in figure skating for all of these years is I can look at something, I can learn something new, and then within 5 seconds, I know how I would teach it. Because I would be on the ice sometimes with 40 or 60 athletes at a time, children or adolescents, and I would see them do something new. And then I would have to say, okay, pause. And I would turn to the whole group and say, listen, we're going to all try it this way now. And this is why I think it's going to work. So I had integrated a lot of things I'd learned about publishing really quickly. And then I just started offering that up to other writers and they loved it. So when I broke up with my agent, I thought, you know what? I have been so hopeful that every new thing I write or post on social media is going to go viral. So agents and editors will be just laying at my feet, supplicating, saying, please, Ashleigh, would you work with us? And I've been at the same time terrified that the next thing I post is going to be so off base that then I'll be blacklisted and no one will ever want to work with me again. So when I broke up with my agent,
Talk about anxiety.
I mean, no pressure, right?
Yeah.
No pressure. And I mean, this is being constantly under pressure and scrutinized and judged is what I did my whole life. And then what I taught other people to live through and to handle. But I realized, wow, I'm putting all of this pressure on myself. I had 45 days where I could not contact any other agents after I broke off my contract. And I thought, you know what? I am just going to post what's fun. I'm going to post the things that my little audience asks for. I had about 2,000 followers on Instagram at that point.
So quickly.
Yes.
And you hadn't even published a book yet.
No, I hadn't. I've been working.
That's amazing.
I've been working so hard and growing at about 500 followers a year. And on TikTok, I had 5 followers, 2 of my kids and 3 of their friends. They were all pity follows because I'd never posted anything. But during those 45 days, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to post things that are fun. And this is right at the time when Instagram introduced Reels. And I like being on video because I have performed on video. I've taught other people to perform. So seeing myself or hearing myself isn't aggravating. It's something that I've been, accustomed to for a really long time. So I started making just little videos of things, relationship advice. My book has to do with rehabbing my shabby marriage and infidelity, non-monogamy, all these different things we kind of bounced between when we realized, okay, we've been married for 10 years and we are completely disconnected and very, very good at ignoring everything we really need to work on in this relationship.
Now, am I correct and tell me if I'm incorrect about this, but one of the inspirations for the book, didn't you and your husband actually visit a swingers club, sex club?
We did. I say my story is about how, as a perfectionist mom, I took doing it all to the next level as the world's worst attempted swinger. So my book is Swing, a memoir of doing it all. I was running my own business, homeschooling my kids. This was pre-pandemic, so I was homeschooling on purpose, homesteading, home birthing, just reaching for the highest level of difficulty in every area of my life to try to feel filled up. So I just started sharing some short videos about that kind of thing, about feeling overwhelmed, about being a martyr mom, about intimacy. And in those 45 days that I had to wait before I could contact another agent, my audience grew by 55,000 people.
I'm sorry, 55,000 followers at that point?
In 45 days, it grew by 55,000 followers.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you about your social media genius. But before we do that, let's get back just momentarily, at least to the self-publishing, because you decided to self-publish. Now, here again, I guess you considered, as far as self-publishing expenses, I mean, obviously, if you can do your own proofing and editing and formatting, you're still faced with the expenses of designing and printing a cover, artwork, printing copies of the book, and of course, marketing. So, but aside from the cost of marketing, did you look at the cost factor? What did it cost you to self-publish that book?
It cost me a lot. It cost me a lot. When I grew my audience that quickly, that's when I thought, oh, wait, maybe I don't want an agent. And I realized, wow, okay, you know what?
Right, with 55,000 followers, you've got automatic sales.
Right. And I've grown by another 300,000 since then. Okay.
Oh my God.
I know. It's really been wild. I realized, okay, what really works best for me is holding all the risk and all the reward at the same time. I am only comfortable delegating once I've done it myself and then realized, oh, okay, I understand the ins and outs of this. I'm happy to have someone else delegate. Then I'll know what questions to ask to check in. So I thought, you know what? Self-publishing is going to be a huge investment in time, in money, but then I'm also going to be able to help other writers, regardless of their path to publishing. I'm going to be able to understand the ins and outs of this more thoroughly so I can help other writers, regardless of how they decide to publish. I can help them launch their book and connect with their audience. So when I was investing, it was about $10,000 I invested in editing and cover design.
Well, okay. So you did get an editor, and that was part of the expense.
3 editors and a cover designer. Yes.
Okay.
A developmental edit and a copy edit, and then a proofread. So okay. I went through all of those things because I wanted it to be good. I really, and also, James, putting pressure on myself. I walked away from my business. It was a nonprofit that I had, so I just signed it over. So then I had this I don't think anybody else in the world really cared about how quickly I found a new success, but internally I was like, I need to get moving with this because I just walked away from 100 skaters and their families.
You faced sink or swim, one of the two. That's it.
Sink or swim. And I really felt like I need to do something meaningful. And this was probably just my own insecurity, but so that those kids don't think I walked away from them for nothing. So I was still putting pressure on myself, but looking at it with a little more awareness. So actually the $10,000 I invested in the editing and the design of the book was about 1/10 of what I spent, James.
Because you still needed to print copies, initial copies.
Well, I did print on demand. Okay.
Okay.
I did print on demand.
So what did you print, about 25 copies and start from there and then publish as the orders came in?
I printed 0 actual copies. I printed about 1,000 ARCs. Okay, so I'll say that. I printed about 1,000 advanced reader copies, and I had those sent to friends across the US and Canada who were willing to put them in little free libraries. So that was a big part of it. And that
was a good idea.
Yeah, and that cost me, I originally planned to print about 50 or 100. So I didn't have the cheapest printing system set up. I got it from lulu.com, which is a place you can get print on demand, and they do a good job. They do a very good job. It's not the lowest price, but because I already had it set up there with my special ARC cover and the little free library edition on it. And when you opened it up, James, it said, shh, you are holding a top secret copy of a yet to be published book.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And it said, and as we all know, the best thing to do with every secret is to shout it out on social media immediately. So post a picture of this book and tag me. Let me know where this copy ended up.
So you encouraged spies to go ahead and release their secrets.
I did. And you know what? I had also, when I was querying agents, I started sending out one chapter at a time. And then very quickly, it became the whole manuscript to anybody who asked, because I wanted to build buzz within my circle of friends, of colleagues in skating, and just extended, the extensions there, like friends of friends. Within 3 weeks, I had sent out 425 copies of the full manuscript. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to put a lid on this for right now, because when I get an agent, I don't know how to explain to them that I'm sending out free copies
so
everywhere.
You still hadn't decided that you were going to self-publish. You were still thinking of getting a publisher.
Right. I was still trying to get an agent at that point. So the thing is, and if anyone showed up in my Instagram direct messages in crisis saying, I saw one of your videos about before you get a divorce, try this. And I have to tell you, I had divorce papers signed, and then I saw your video and I just put them to the side. Like, do you have anything else for me? I would say, send me your email, and I would just send them my whole book.
No, you already had 55,000 followers at that point. And of course, when you're talking about an author's platform, 55,000 followers. That is a great start, and most publishers would be interested just from that standpoint. Did they begin buying copies immediately?
Did publishers begin buying
No,
copies?
your audience, your
My
followers.
audience did. So I set up pre-orders. Pre-orders opened in February and my book came out in May. I had decided the November before, okay, yes, I'm not going to find another agent. I'm going to do this myself. So by February, I was ready for pre-orders. May 25th, the book came out. I sold 5,000 copies my first week.
Wonderful.
So that was, yeah,
what a great start.
Right, because pre-orders count for first week sales. I actually outsold 5 books on the New York Times bestseller list for paperback nonfiction that week. I didn't make the list. There are other lists I did make. I didn't make that list because it's a curated list, and I knew that I would probably have to triple anybody's sales week after week to like get noticed.
Right.
But my sales were fantastic. And so many people who had read the earlier version of the manuscript bought copies as well and bought copies for friends. So that didn't hurt my sales. If anything, it made people more invested. It felt like they sort of had a book coming out too.
Did you send copies out for review?
I did.
Like magazines, newspapers?
I did. I kept it. I only sent out a few for industry reviews like Kirkus and Library Journal.
Right. Kirkus is important.
Yes. What I wanted to focus on mostly was what kinds of outreach can I do that have no gatekeepers? Like what kinds of things can people replicate and what kinds of things are scalable, depending on time, depending on financial resources, but like what can other people replicate that doesn't require a yes from somebody in the industry to say, yeah, you're allowed to do this. So my focus was really like horizontal loyalty, like really like this outreach, like reader, like whisper down the lane type thing. And I really brought my social media audience in on that with me to help promote the book, to ask their library to order the paperback and the ebook, even if they already.
Oh, that's a great idea. Getting your social media people to get out there and work for you in the trenches, actually, as opposed to just passing the good word on. Get in the trenches and do something. And
here's one of the tricks. When I started writing my book, it was spring of 2019. I changed my buying habits for books. I began ordering from my local independent bookstore instead of ordering from Amazon. And I started pre-ordering books from writers I like because I had already figured out, oh, wow, all pre-orders count for first week sales. That's interesting. Oh, pre-orders will help a publisher determine how much they're going to invest in marketing and publicity. That's interesting. Pre-orders will help bookstores determine whether or not they're going to stock it in store. Interesting. So I started telling my audience all of these things about pre-orders. I would say, I'm pre-ordering this book from this author. This is why I'm ordering from a local independent bookstore. Doesn't just support small business, it actually supports authors too, because sales from independent bookstores are more heavily weighted on the curated bestseller list, like Wall Street Journal and New York Times, because those lists consider people who buy from independent bookstores, and I'm saying this sort of laughing because it's complete snobbery, but they consider those readers to be more serious readers.
Well, and there's a certain amount of truth to that because people have to go that extra mile to buy the book.
They do. And you know what? People who buy on Kindle or ebook are maybe more voracious readers, but the industry takes bookstore customers more seriously. And I thought, you know what, I want to know all the rules, even if I decide to break some of them. So when my book became available for pre-order, my local independent bookstore that I'd been an excellent customer there for 2 years. I was a great patron. I'd asked them, would you be willing to be my exclusive retailer for signed copies? And they said, okay. Is your book returnable? And yes, it was. What is your discount? Because I had to set my discount through Ingram Spark. They were my distributor, and I had set the industry standard, which is 55%.
And that is the typical distributor for self-published books. So obviously they have a good reputation, with bookstores.
They absolutely do. So my local independent bookstore said yes. And they said, listen, we're probably only going to order 1 or 2 extra copies because that's all we do for debut authors and self-published authors. We don't usually take any local authors right now because we've paused our consignment thing. But listen, you've been, the person I reached out to actually, she was the events manager. She and I had been connected on social media for a while, and I had tagged the bookstore every time I bought from them or went and picked up a book. So what she went to the owner and she said, listen, we have this local author. She's self-publishing, but she's a fantastic customer. She really is truly a fantastic customer who gets a lot of press for the store as far as on social media. And I just have a good feeling about this. Well, James, there were 600 copies ordered to that bookstore before my pub day.
My goodness.
600. And it said, and they told me like, that afternoon that I went in and signed, and we didn't have a public signing because this was still in pandemic. This was like middle of May of this year, 2021. So we went in with masks and they cleared an area in the back of the store and they helped me to sign those 600 books. And it only took a few hours. It was amazing.
And you realize, of course, you outpaced most publishers that actually are distributing books.
I did. And they said to me, listen, John Grisham didn't even sell this many books for his events here. and then they would tell me cool stories about like how James Patterson likes to sign and John Grisham likes to sign, and he'll just go, move. Like he'll sign and then they'll pull out that hardback from underneath. It was a surreal moment, and seeing all of those books stacked there. I'm getting a little teary right now just thinking about it, that I did it. I wrote the book. I brought in the team that I needed to try to get a quality product, and then people were buying it.
What an elated feeling.
It really was. It really is. One of the things I did, because I had total control, I kept saying to myself, like, my book, my rules. How do I want to do this? I narrated and recorded my own audiobook before pub day, and I offered that in its entirety for free for anybody who pre-ordered.
So in other words, if they purchased the book, they would get the audiobook at the same time?
They would get the audiobook immediately. So if they pre-ordered the book in February, the paperback came out in May. But
so before that, they got the audiobook.
They got the audiobook. And then guess what they did at the end of the audiobook? They went and left early reviews on Goodreads, and they told friends, you need to get this book too.
Now, I was going to ask you, because apparently your ratings on Goodreads and Amazon are quite good. How did you accomplish that?
Well, that was one of the easiest parts of this. I getting reviews was actually pretty easy because I am accessible to my audience every single day. I have an average of 80 conversations going in my direct messages every day. And I answer every single message. And I have an assistant who I hired before my launch who goes through my emails and makes me a to-do list and does other things for me so I can be there for my audience. A lot of times it's amazing because 70% of my direct messages are actually from men. And they'll see a video and they'll go, wow, okay, I felt really disconnected from my wife and I've tried this and that, but like, it's hard because we
are they asking you in essence for advice, perhaps? You become not from an ice skater to a writer to a psychologist.
Listen, I have always coached people on how to work together because I coach the team aspect of skating. So when people come into my direct messages, what they're talking about are feelings, and what they're talking about are cooperation and communication. And whether it's something inside the bedroom or outside the bedroom, it comes down to being honest about how we're feeling and being able to communicate that clearly, and then being able to hear our partner too. I think so it was 2 decades that I taught adolescent girls how to get along. So when I make a 30-second video for how a married couple could maybe look at something or discuss something, it does a few things really quickly. It disarms them, like, oh, we're all on the same team. Oh, it's a little bit funny. Coaching adolescents is sort of like stand-up comedy. You have a short period of time to get their attention, convince them to play along, deliver your information, and then have them feel the way you want them to feel, whether you want them to laugh, whether you want them to get a little upset, whether you want them to go execute something. So it's like that sort of psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I was an exercise physiology major, but teaching those relationships and that cooperation over and over and over with so many different personalities and dynamics, I think allows me to be sort of a sounding board. People feel really safe and comfortable.
Well, the
coming into
basis
my direct
of really
messages.
good psychology is intuition. Obviously, you have a good intuition, but I think the other portion, shall we say, formula for success of your book is the subject. And this is something I want to relate to the audience as you're talking about this. You chose a subject matter which has to do with marriage and how to really make a marriage work when you're just about to call it quits. I think that's the basis, if I'm right. And
You're
again,
correct.
your book is called Swing, where I just want to remind our audience what the book is, because probably the subject matter is so important that you are going to be able to develop a good audience. So again, choosing the right subject matter for a nonfiction book is probably critical.
I think it is. And, you know, some agents who I spoke to said, okay, I actually see like 4 books in this book. Like it's like overcoming perfectionism. It's like sort of a spiritual parenting book. It's about rehabbing a shabby marriage. And then there's this whole kind of funny, sexy, salacious theme about, you know, you and your husband going to sex clubs on date nights because, you know, they're like, it seems like different
That's
books.
an interesting date night, all right. Not a question about that.
It is. And I said, listen, I know it seems like a lot, but this is like me every day, is all these different things, And being able to show up for my audience on social media, especially in my stories, because I don't post every day, but I'm in my stories on Instagram every day. And they see me jogging with my dog. They see my kids putting away the groceries. They see me, you know, joking about something or being like stressed because I'm a recovering perfectionist. They just see all of these things at once every day. And I think they relate to that none of us are just one thing.
So let's talk about your social media success, because obviously that's, I mean, to begin with, in 45 days, you have an audience of 55,000 followers is incredible. How do you go about social media? I'm assuming you use all the platforms from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram, probably Pinterest as well, I'm guessing, and LinkedIn. You use them all. And what's your approach to it?
Yeah, so I don't use them all. I predominantly use Instagram and TikTok.
Okay, so you don't use Facebook. Interesting.
I do mostly for groups and connecting with other writers. I just kind of cross post things over to Facebook sometimes that I've created for Instagram or TikTok. And now that Instagram has Reels on Instagram, I had 500 followers on Facebook for years, and now I have 3,500 within the last couple of weeks because people do really love my video content. Mm-hmm. Video is so cliche, but it's so damn true. Video is so hot right now, like short form video content. People want to get either their encouragement or their education or their entertainment within 30 seconds. So
are you doing a lot on YouTube as well?
I am not doing very much on YouTube. It is, you know what? I have found that Instagram and TikTok are more intimate feeling apps for the audience.
Now you've got different audiences there. Do you tailor your message, for example, for TikTok followers as opposed to Instagram, for example? Or of course you don't use Facebook that much, but there's a huge difference between the Facebook audience and the TikTok audience.
So I make my videos in Instagram and then I just cross post them to TikTok because I just like, Instagram's not actually very intuitive. It's the most counterintuitive app you'll ever use. So if any of your audience members are like, I can't quite figure out how to use Instagram, you are not alone. It takes a lot because everything's a little backwards from how you would expect it to work. But I'm used to Instagram, so I make my videos there and then just cross post them to TikTok. They're pretty much the same on both platforms.
I see. So you don't necessarily tailor things to the medium.
I don't. I like to, if I'm going to make something, I want to get as many eyes on it as possible. So then it'll be cross-posted to my Facebook and my Facebook author page. They just don't get a lot of traction there, but focusing on Instagram and TikTok is enough because I get so many replies to comments there that replying to comments on more than 2 platforms.
So you find really that other mediums such as Pinterest, for example, and LinkedIn really haven't been that productive for you. So that's why you're focused on Instagram and TikTok.
It's true. The one place where Pinterest was super effective is when I was running ads for my book. So here's the
All right,
thing.
I was going to ask you about that because you do spend money on advertising, or at least you did, correct?
I did. I spent a lot of money on advertising.
Tell us about that. Was it expensive?
Yeah,
And was it
well,
productive?
it was productive as far as my own education about what works and what doesn't work. It wasn't super productive in selling books. Okay, one of the things that I thought coming from figure skating to writing is, should I get an MFA so I can meet people? Yes, to make my writing better, but like so that I actually have connections. So I thought, okay, I'm willing to invest in my next career here. When I decided to self-publish, I thought, you know what? I am going to try. I have a pretty big capacity for taking on projects, and I have stamina and discipline. I mean, those things either attracted
You
me to
certainly
figure
do.
skating. They attracted me to figure skating, or, you know, made me successful in figure skating. I don't know, chicken or the egg, right? But I can handle a lot at once. So I thought, you know what? I am going to do like almost like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Let's see what sticks. I'm going to try this and this and this. And I'm going to spend a lot of time here and a lot of money here so that I can understand what may work for other genres that's not working for mine, or what really worked for memoir. And I want to know why. So I did Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, and YouTube ads. When I would find a platform that was working, like Pinterest ads worked like crazy, James.
Interesting.
I know. And I was like, why is this? Why is this? Like, Facebook is sending 10 times as many people. Lots of people would click on my Facebook ad and go to my website, but then they wouldn't hit a buy button. And I thought, okay, this is so interesting. But Instagram, people would actually convert, like 10 to 30 times more likely to convert than Facebook.
So your advertise on Instagram actually paid off more than Facebook, even though they're obviously interrelated now.
Oh, sorry, Pinterest. It was the Pinterest one that paid off.
So the Pinterest one. All right. The ads on Pinterest, maybe because you were posting an image and a concept. And
I think this is why. First, this is how I ended up spending so much money on ads. I spent about $60,000 on ads. And I considered, and that absolutely, that did not get, I did not recoup that in book sales yet. Absolutely not. But I understand a lot of things about ads now. And I do learn by doing the best. So I could have hired an ad person. I actually did hire an ad person for a few weeks. And I wasn't learning anything, and my numbers were really terrible. So then when I let them go and did it myself, my Facebook ads were 30 times, I'm throwing out the number 30 a couple times here because it actually was. They were 30 times more effective and costing less money. When I was like, I think, because I know so much about my audience, James, and that's the thing too. From answering that many direct messages a day, it would have taken me a couple of years to get an agent up to speed and an editor up to speed, or a publicist on what I already know just internally about my audience that I can't even quite articulate.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. So what I noticed was, okay, people on when Pinterest ads were performing well, then I would jack up my spend on Pinterest so that I would get the book sales. And then I would increase my spend on all the other platforms that same day too, just so I could compare apples to apples. Like, listen, if I am spending 500 on Pinterest and 500 on TikTok and 500 on Facebook in one day, what are my results? You know, with the same video, like the same ad content, why is it different? And this is what I'm thinking. So my audience, my target audience was women 25 to 55 on all the platforms in English speaking countries. Okay. So it was like, I didn't even go niche. I was just like ages 25 to 55. When a woman in that age range is on Facebook, she's got stuff to do. She's maybe wishing someone a happy birthday. She's maybe checking her neighborhood Facebook group. Maybe she's checking that like yard sale thing where she like, you know, she's trying to sell something, or like she was wanting to get that coffee table or whatever. She's got things she wants to see if like Uncle Frank and Aunt Mildred are still fighting over the political thing, and like going back to that,
It's
right?
more personal things, obviously.
Right, like things to check in,
And
almost
scattered actually.
scattered, and sort of like a to-do list on Facebook.
So you were going after focus.
I was going after people who were looking for something but didn't really know what they were looking for, James. When you're on Pinterest, you're like, I think I need a new idea for a dinner recipe. Oh, okay. Can I find a new recipe, a new casserole? Oh, wait. Actually, it's not that I have dinner problems. This is talking about rehabbing a shabby marriage. That's actually my problem right now. Right? It's like you're just searching for something to make life easier or make life less complicated or make something make sense. So are you
So
looking
did you
for...
continue to advertise on Pinterest then, since you were getting such a good response?
I did for a few weeks after so I went hard like a few weeks leading up to my pub day and a few weeks after. What I found though is that if I make a video that really, really relates to my audience, resonates with them on TikTok, the reach will be amazing. It'll be like several 100,000 views to 1 million views. And then my book ranking on Amazon and my sales go up faster than anything, just posting a free video on TikTok. And then about 10% of my new followers on TikTok will go and follow me on Instagram too. And then a percentage of that sign up for my email list. So really my highest leverage activities right now are going live on TikTok, because then TikTok, the average TikTok user is on there for 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day. So TikTok algorithm rewards people who are doing or saying something interesting that keeps their users' eyes on the platform. So like most mornings when I'm getting ready, I will just turn on TikTok live while I'm like doing my makeup in the bathroom and just like chat with people. People like jump in to say good morning. They ask questions for like what they'd like my next video to be. When I get off that live, I might have like 600 notifications on TikTok, because when I'm doing a live video, TikTok says, thank you for making content for our audience, and then pushes out all my videos to their...
Really, I think what you're saying is the video is the key. It's not just the verbal postings.
Right. It has been for me. And I think there are a few parts of that I am a performer. I like being on video. I'm comfortable with that.
And that probably comes across. Your enthusiasm obviously comes across.
It does. It definitely does. And I think because I've had to practice getting my point across concisely, maybe with a bit of humor, with a slant you've never heard before, with trying to get teenagers to listen to me for so long, that ability to like deliver that sound bite that lands with people in a way that like just lands nicely. Like I can be talking about something in the bedroom and it's like I'm talking about, landscaping. It's like it feels like no big deal to people.
But I'm confused about one thing, Ashleigh, and that is with TikTok, and you mentioned primarily teenagers. Why would the subject of incompatible marriage be of interest to them?
Here's the thing about TikTok. TikTok has 1 billion users as of last week. They have triple the user base of Twitter. Many of the people using TikTok are not teenagers. They are not. They're adults. Adults follow me on TikTok. And
interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
the 25 to 55 group that you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
No idea.
I know, it's interesting. On TikTok and Instagram both, the majority of my audience is under 35, like 25 to 35 is the majority of my audience. And I'm 41. So the majority of my audience is like a little bit younger than me. And then the rest, like it goes up to like 55s, 55, 60. Some people who have grown children, but then are appreciating my advice. So yeah, that's the thing about TikTok. There is this misconception, and I had it for a long time, that it's all like teenagers lip syncing. There are a lot of great young creators on TikTok, but the people I like are adolescents who are on the autism spectrum, who will debunk the myths about autism, or young adults who have Tourette's, who educate people about Tourette's, and on their videos, they'll be ticking and things like that. And they'll be like, this is how it happens. Like, these are things that maybe you don't know or that are misunderstood. Like those are the things that I love. I feel like TikTok is like Instagram is like this curated place where like everything should look nice, or it has been. Instagram's trying to pivot to be more like TikTok because the Facebook company is very good at figuring out what users like on other apps and then copying it and then having people come to them for it.
Right,
So,
that's true.
whereas TikTok is like an eclectic house party where, oh, there's an interesting conversation going on over there. Oh, those people over there are really funny. Oh, I've never heard this perspective, and you can just bounce around and kind of just like hang out in different spaces. And I was worried. I kept comments off for my first couple of weeks on TikTok because I was just worried that it was going to be like the Wild West and people were going to be like rude or inappropriate because I was talking about sex stuff too. They're not. They are not. There's this interesting, the rudest comments I get are on Facebook, and then I just block people immediately. And honestly, it's like it's like 0.1% of my comments or my messages are rude. Like it's very, very, very low. But on TikTok, it's this sort of like people love being on TikTok and watching and finding someone who's entertaining or encouraging. So when they find you, there's like, if they don't like you, they'll just swipe away and watch someone else. They don't feel the need to comment on like.
But if they like you, they'll follow you, is what you're saying.
Exactly. They have this.
If they like what you have to say, and if you're an honest, open person, as opposed to trying to sell them something or be conniving about it.
Absolutely. They just appreciate anybody who is there and making content for them to consume, for them to enjoy.
So let's talk about your services for a moment, because we have some limited time left here. You do coaching services. Why don't you tell us about what you offer to writers? Because obviously you have a fabulous amount of information you can pass on to writers. So how does this all work?
Yeah. So that's what I realized was that I love learning when I know I'm going to be able to teach it to somebody else. Like that's my favorite way to learn. So I co-host the Writer's Bridge, which is a free bi-weekly Q&A on Zoom. It's every other Tuesday, where we talk about building platform for writers. And we call it the Writer's Bridge because a platform is something that you climb up on and yell at people from. But a bridge is a two-way street from you to your reader. You can reach them,
which
they
makes
can
sense.
reach you.
And by the way, is this a podcast, or is it just basically you get onto Zoom and you join the conversation?
You get onto Zoom and you join the conversation. And every one of them is recorded. So we just recorded our 30th episode yesterday. And we have a detailed timeline of every episode. So if you want to know about email newsletters for writers, you can go into our master document and search email newsletters, and you will see, oh, at 4 minutes, 20 seconds in episode 14, we talked about that. Oh, we talked about it here. And you could just jump to all of them. It's really well organized because, when you're looking for something specific, like I recommend people go back and listen to all of them because every one of them is fantastic. In its own way. But if you just want to know, okay, listen, should I go with Substack? You'll see all the places we talked about Substack or alternatives to Substack, things like that.
So you have a library of different conversations and that people can access, and there's a way to access the subject matter that you're interested in.
Absolutely. And it's all free with my amazing co-host, Allison K. Williams. She's a fantastic author and editor. She just wrote the book 7 Drafts. Her book 7 Drafts just came out. How to self-edit like a pro from blank page to book. It's a fantastic, fantastic read. I think it's going to be like a craft staple for people. So that's all free. You can just go.
So you do this free because obviously when people find you, then they're going to want to know or want to perhaps utilize your coaching services. Am I correct?
That is true. And building this community, Allison is a former acrobat and circus director, and I'm a former figure skater and coach and choreographer. So we're team players.
What a combination.
Right, we're writers.
You're all performers on the high wire and skating on thin ice. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in.
No, it's true. So we are team players, even though writing is a solitary endeavor at most times. So building that community, we built it during pandemic, has just been such a gift to us. So I also offer very, very limited 30-day coaching packages where it starts with a full manuscript read, And then I will develop a social media strategy for the writer and coach them through it for those 30 days. So then they will be able to do it themselves after.
So you actually read the entire manuscript before you begin giving advice. And of course, the advice you give is what you're an expert at and tremendously successful at, social media. So you're really getting into what they're writing, and then you're converting this into how their marketing approach should be, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. This is your book. This is the story you're wanting to tell. And I work with some people who already have published books. Some are works in progress. And if someone has a collection of essays or bylines in different places, they can send me a collection of things up to 80,000 words of I write on this topic, but I don't have a book yet, but I want to expand my platform. Then I'll take up to 80,000 words of, a selection of their pieces and say, okay, these are the things that I think are going to connect most with people. This is the way that you can communicate that on social media. Here's how we're going to pull people in, how they're going to understand really what they're going to get from you. Because
so you would work with a writer, for example, not only who's interested perhaps in self-publishing, which is one of the things that you do, but also writers who want to get an agent and a publisher. I would imagine you would, help them in that particular direction, if that's the direction they want to go in, to be able to write their book in a way that it would be acceptable to an agent and to a publisher.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I even have clients who are publishing with Big 5 publishers, and they're getting some publicity help from their publisher, but they also know, the onus is on the writer more than ever. And social media is fantastic for going direct to consumer, direct to reader. And
well, and not only that, but in nonfiction, for example, platform is everything. So the publishers are looking to writers who have platforms.
They are to writers who have platforms, and you know what, honestly,
successful platforms is really the adjective I should have used.
This is the thing that I truly believe. I think a writer knows their audience better than any publicity expert ever could. When publicity, and thank you for publicity people at big publishers, thank you for the work you do. I think it's a bit of a crapshoot. Let's just try all these things. Big publishers know that most of their titles every year are going to fail. By fail, I mean they're not going to earn out, right? And then it's going to be the big winners that then float everything else.
Right.
Because I'm an independent publisher, I have my one book. I am, one woman shop here. I need my book sales and my coaching offerings. I need all of this to keep me afloat, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'm helping people with right now too, and one of the things I'm doing is my audience wants so much more from me. I'm getting to the point where I can't give my audience everything they need. It's hard to keep up with those direct messages. Sometimes the messages I'll send in a day, the support I give, it'll be the same answer a lot of times, but it'll be something a little bit too intimate or detailed to explain in a 30-second video. So what I'm going to open up, James, is members only content on my website. So instead of going Patreon or Substack, I'm going to have all of my video content hosted on my website. Still going to stay up on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm still going to continue posting in those places. But when you go to my website, there'll be all my videos, and every 4th or 5th video will be blurred out and it'll say unlock members only content.
Yeah, but as we're just about out of time right now, unfortunately, because this is fabulous. I'm hoping maybe we could even do a follow-up interview. There's just so much to derive from you and from your success. But the important thing is how our audience can get a hold of you. And I think you're saying that's through your website. And again, if I'm correct, ashleighrenard.com is your website, right?
That's right. You can get a hold of me there, or come on over to Instagram, follow me at Ashleigh Renard on Instagram, send me a direct message to say hi.
Ashleigh Renard at Instagram. That's simple, right?
That's simple. Yes. Okay. So for Writer's Bridge, if you go to my link in bio on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, it will show a list of links, and on there it'll be, do you want free platform building tips? And then you just click right on there and that'll take you to the Writer's Bridge sign up.
All right. So the important thing, though, is getting a hold of you, obviously, through Instagram or going to Writer's Bridge, but ashleighrenard.com. And Ashleigh, by the way, our audience knows that they can find any important link from any of our guests by coming to our website. We have a great number of visits to our website, which is breakthrough-podcast.com. So if, our audience will go to there, Ashleigh, your links are going to be there. And I encourage you that if you have any other links you want to send us, we will post those links on our website so that our audience can get to you on Instagram, on Writer's Bridge, directly to your website, because what you have to offer is information I hope people will follow up on. I mean, it's tremendous information, and I just wish we had more time, but I want to thank you so much for being with us. You've been a terrific guest, and the information is invaluable.
Wonderful, James. And I would love to come on again if you want to continue this conversation.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ashleigh. Your information has been invaluable to our audience. I really, really appreciate it. I know our audience will as well. And I do hope your book will continue to be a swinging success, pardon the pun. But in any case, we're going to have you back again. I'll be right back after this message with my tip of the week for writers.
Breakthrough is sponsored by the acclaimed novel Rebirth of Erin O'Brien, available at Amazon. Be sure to check out our website, breakthrough-podcast.com, where you will find insider tips, blogs, excellent resources for writers, along with additional podcasts. That's breakthrough-podcast.com. Now back to our host, James Polikoff.
I'm back with a tip for aspiring writers. First of all, love your story. This may sound a bit silly, but many of you have a list of story ideas kicking around in your head. Choose the one you are most passionate about and start with that story. Most authors do their best writing when they're deeply involved with the characters and the plot. So worry less about what sells and write about what you love. Again, love your story. Thanks again for joining me. And for more Breakthrough podcasts, as well as resources for writers, be sure to visit our website, breakthrough-podcast.com. I'll see you next time. Thank you.